Hi, it's Alexis, relationship counselor. In this video, we're going to talk about how we can use communication to get back with our ex. Breakups can be tough, but there are ways to increase your chances of getting back with your ex. One important factor is how you communicate with that person. It's clear that throughout the relationship, you had communication problems, and let me know in the comment section if that was the case. The problem that I see consistently, and I want you to learn from this video, is that people make the worst mistake after the breakup because they don't know how to communicate. It's very important for you to master this if you want to get back with your ex. I'll explain everything after the jingle.
IGetMyExBack.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
The first one is the BBC. Blaming, begging, criticizing. It's the thing that people usually do after a breakup because we are so much in pain. We feel the decision is unfair, and we sort of have this instinct. In neuroscientific point of view, some people would say you're using your chimp brain to communicate, and you will blame, and you'll beg, and you criticize. The problem is that your ex has already a fairly bad image of you. So please don't make it worse. Right? And at this stage, swallow your pride. I don't care whether they were right, whether it's unfair. That's not the point. Right? You're probably right, and that doesn't matter. The point is to avoid, leaving a bad image of you. First impressions are extremely important. Last impressions are also very important. No contact. No contact is a form of communication. People don't understand this. By not communicating, you're sending a message to your ex. You're telling them, I don't want to play this game. You're telling them, I want to focus on myself. You're telling them, I accept your decision. And I understand that you need time and space. The beauty of no contact is that you'll release the pressure. There's a lot of pressure from the dumper's side when they decide to end the relationship. And if you want to communicate with someone who's under stress, who's pressured, it's harder, right? That's why you need to go no contact. That's why you need to leave your ex some time, some space. Think of the way you or the context you want to communicate with your ex. Think of, you're about to ask your boss for a raise. There are times in the day, there are times in the week where you shouldn't knock at that door. So it's just a question of finding the right time, finding the right moment. And you can't create that moment if you're constantly communicating with them, right? You might not see it, but trust me, it doesn't work like this. You need to give them a bit of time if you want that pressure to release. Because some people would be really good at, or they'll put a lot of distance. That's very common, where they'll be very cold with you because you don't get the message that they want to be on their own. But also some people will be very nice. You have people who decide to end a relationship who are still people pleaser, and they will, still be around because they feel guilty that they broke up with you. And you might be feeling, yes, it's getting somewhere. She's super nice with me. She wants to see me. She said, okay, don't get fooled. If it's not leading anywhere, it's because that's not there yet. They need to reflect and listen space. Another strategy, and this is the one I coach my clients, because as a therapist, I not only listen to people, what I like to do is that to provide them with tools. I want to make the experience of the breakup, of course, it's never going to be enjoyable, but something that you can learn from. And that's why I create a lot of content. I have now a platform where you have a lot of courses. I host workshops once or twice per week for people to really understand. So have a look in the description. There are links to learn more about that. And non-violent communication is something that we you need to learn something that I think everyone needs to learn. That's something that should be taught in school. Is one, of course, I won't have time to develop what is nonviolent communication, and we'll probably do some workshops on that. We'll probably do a course on that. To make a long story short, use when I statement instead of you. Yes, you don't want to talk. You ignore me. You're selfish. You only think about you. You remember like this chimp brain? That's how we instinctively communicate. Okay. When you use the when and I, you avoid any sign of confrontation. And when you use you, there's a risk of you being a bit clingy. Okay, because when you say you put the light on your ex, right? I.e. expecting something from them. I.e. the answer is with you. Okay, so it's very important. You is the best way to be confrontational, and it's the best way to be clingy, which are the two things you don't want to do. An example. When you decided to end a relationship, that's a fact. Don't have to be discussed. That's not an opinion. That's not a judgment. Very often we are very good at making judgment, sharing our opinion. I felt, and you put whatever feeling you have, confused, sad, angry, your emotion. I imagine this was a difficult decision for you to take. Empathy, again, the chimp brain doesn't want to be empathetic with someone who just broke up with them. But the idea is manipulative, I don't know, but it's a very smart way to communicate with someone. I need to better understand how we ended up here. So you need, but you see, the need comes right after, right? A bit of honey, and then you get your message. Would you be available to discuss? So I chose this example just in the context of breakup. Don't necessarily use this if you want to break no contact, but just like instead of being confrontational, you use the when, I feel, empathy, the message, and the ask. So you can remove the ask if you don't want to ask anything. You can change the need, but usually just again, have a look in I'll create a course on that. Check in the description. I'll probably make a more in-depth course on nonviolent communication. Now that I've said previously, I have no choice but to do it. But just an example. Being empathetic, again, you don't necessarily want to be empathetic, but that's really what works. You want to connect with that person, right? Even though they hurt you, even though you're suffering from the decision, you want to connect with that person. So you want to understand their version of the story, plus, and that's the hardest part, the way they see life. And it is why it's so important for you to understand attachment theory. A lot of my clients, a lot of people watching my videos are in the context of an avoidant, anxious dynamic. And when you understand how your partner is triggered, how he or she deactivates, or how he or she protests when they're anxious, then you understand what you need to do, right? You understand that from this moment, I would have acted in a different way, but my approach, my belief is different because my attachment is different. My attachment style is different. So it could be things like, I understand that you need space right now and I respect that. Now, beware, sometimes it happens, especially if you're anxious attached. The dark side of empath is when you forget about your own needs, right? And then you feel like, oh, I'm so sorry for him. Even people like their ex broke up with them, they feel really so sorry. They feel like, oh yeah, I was so bad with them. I was so clingy, I was so needy. I know I'm too much. Of course he would find someone else, because that's the danger of being an empath in that context, because you forget your needs. Okay, what do you want? What did you get from that relationship? Sometimes people will chase the wrong relationship, and sometimes I coach people and they conclude that that person was not the right person for them, because they forgot what they wanted. They forgot how to express their needs. And they ended up in a relationship where Not necessarily abusive, sometimes abusive, but they realized that they were chasing the relationship, but that relationship didn't bring them what they wanted. Playing games versus being authentic. Don't get me wrong, I don't coach people to play games. And you want to be yourself with your partner. You don't want to be in a relationship where you have to pretend. So of course, I would use strategies where you don't necessarily disclose how you feel, right? But I wouldn't lie to your partner. So keep it to yourself. If you're still in love with your ex, don't tell them right away. Because if you say something like, I love you, to someone who's not ready to tell that back to you, guess what will happen? They'll run away. It's an extreme example, but just to make a case. So try to take action based on what feels aligned with you. But also knowing how your ex will respond. Also knowing, their state of mind, the phase of in their life they're in. Okay, so you need to really be aligned with your values and see whether that aligns with their values, align with their vision of things. Any relationship will end because of a lack of communication, and it recovers with the right communication. So the problem is some people misunderstand that. They feel like, yeah, give me the tools, give me the tools to communicate properly. The problem is that communication, what we say, is just the outcome, it's just the result of a long, ongoing thinking process based on belief, based on thoughts, based on emotion. 90% of what happens in our brain is unconscious, just a reminder. So it's important to work on your insecurities first. Because by working on those things, by having counseling sessions, by reading about attachment style, about any type of insecurities that you feel, reading about nonviolent communication provides you a framework for you to take that step back. It's so important. I learned it quite late in my life, but when you go to therapy and you get someone who helps you understand those blind spots, you're so much stronger. And you have the ability, and that's why a lot of people nowadays do a lot of mindfulness, hypnotherapy. It's really about how you can tune in. Whenever you have an urge, whenever your chimp is about to take action, this is when you have to learn, okay, hold on. I think I'm being clingy because I have this fear of abandonment that I got when I was 6 years old. My parents left me at home with a babysitter I didn't know. It could be something like that. And when you're able to link those things, I'm about to text my ex because I hate being alone. Linked to that child who felt distressed when she was alone in her bedroom. I just made up this example, but it could be like an example that you can relate to. If you can do that work on your own, fantastic. I mean, that's the idea. I'm sharing those videos for you to learn and do this work on your own. If you need to find someone, maybe a local therapist, maybe it could be myself, that's an amazing way to accelerate the process and to really understand those blind spots. In any case, learn non-violent communication. It will be super efficient also with your friends, with your boss, if you want to ask that raise, because it's how you can stir the conversation where you want it to be and avoid being confrontational. You can also use it as a salesperson. No, it's not about you, it's about me. Remember, it takes two to communicate. If you follow those principles and your ex is still not receptive, you have to consider the following. Timing. Sometimes it's too soon. Sometimes people, and most of the time people are very impatient. They listen to my tips and they say, okay, cool, I've done no contact for 2 days. I can contact her. No. Sometimes you need a bit of time, especially if you've been together for a while. It needs a bit of time for a new relationship to form. Are you completely sure that the way you communicate is the right one? Whether it's efficient? It's very, very hard to have a strong view, an objective view of what we are doing, right? So if you're not completely sure, and that's what I do with my clients on WhatsApp, I help them and also I coach them on what they should say, what they should do with the Excel. Have a look in the description if you want to get some formal coaching on WhatsApp with me. And last but not least, and again, I don't like to bullshit you. Maybe that's just not the right person and you're chasing the wrong thing. You've been in love with that person. They've been in love with you. You're doing the work. You're doing what matters. You're doing what it takes to get them back. If they fail to recognize this, despite the effort, despite the fact that you haven't done any mistakes, that you've been respectful before and after the breakup, they still don't want to see it. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, you can give it a try and it doesn't work. But if they don't even make the effort to recognize, to be interested with the person they loved, that person is not the right person for you. So really reflect on that. Sometimes it sucks to realize that. When you realize that from a place of strength, from a place of having worked on yourself, trust me, the way you feel about that is way, way different than when you are, on the same level, haven't done any work, haven't done any research. Any question, anything on this video, let me know in the comment section. I would love to know if you want to learn more about non-violent communication. I will see you next time.
For a long time, get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer.